got a tiger by the tail. Hold on, tiger sharks. Look for a spaceship with a sail. And hold on, tiger sharks. Hold on, tiger sharks.
Listen up, because I'm about to tell you about one of the most spectacular failures in 1980s animation history. And I'm not talking about your typical bad cartoon that nobody watched. Nope, I'm talking about a show that had everything going for it. The same team behind ThunderCats, top-tier Japanese animation, and a toy line from the company that made ThunderCats figures fly off the shelves. But here's the thing, TigerSharks was dead on arrival, and the reason why is going to blow your mind. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the complete rise and fall of TigerSharks, the underwater cousin of ThunderCats that almost nobody remembers. And trust me, this isn't just another remember this obscure 80s cartoon nostalgia trip. Because what I discovered when I dug into this story is that TigerSharks failed for reasons that had nothing to do with the quality of the show itself. In fact, the animation was incredible, the voice acting was top-notch, and the concept was actually pretty cool. But the business decisions behind it? Absolutely catastrophic. We're going to cover three main things. First, why Rankin and Bass thought TigerSharks was going to be their next goldmine. Second, the fatal strategic mistakes that killed it before it even had a chance. And third, and this is the crazy part, how this failed show has actually become more valuable today than it ever was back in 1987. But first, let me paint you a picture of just how successful Rankin and Bass was before TigerSharks came along. The setup. Alright, so it's the mid-1980s. If you were a kid back then, you know this was the absolute golden age of action figure cartoons. We're talking He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers. These weren't just cartoons, they were empires. And Rankin and Bass Productions, the same folks who gave us those classic Christmas specials like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, they wanted a piece of that action figure pie. And man, did they get it. In 1985, they launched ThunderCats, and it was like lightning in a bottle. I mean, we're talking 130 episodes, massive toy sales through LJN, and a cultural phenomenon that's still going strong today. If you were a kid in the 80s, you either had ThunderCats toys, or you knew someone who did. The show was everywhere. So naturally, Rankin and Bass looked at that success and thought, okay, we've conquered land with these cat people. What's next? And in 1986, they launched SilverHawks, basically ThunderCats in space with bird people instead of cat people. And you know what? It worked. They got 65 episodes out of it, hit that magic syndication number, and Kenner made the toys this time. It wasn't quite as massive as ThunderCats, but it was still a solid hit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Rankin and Bass had this vision of creating what they called the Big Three, a complete IP universe covering all the major environments. They had land covered with ThunderCats. They had space covered with SilverHawks. So what was left? Water. And that's how TigerSharks was born. The pitch was simple. Take the same formula that worked for ThunderCats and SilverHawks, but make it underwater with heroes who could transform into powerful human-marine animal hybrids. Think about it. You've got your tiger-human hybrids on land, your hawk-human hybrids in space, and now you'd have shark-human hybrids underwater. It was the logical next step, right? And here's the thing. They didn't cheap out on this. They brought back the same creative team. Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass were executive producing. They got the same legendary voice actors. Larry Kinney, Peter Newman, Earl Hammond, Doug Priest, Bob McFadden. Basically the entire ThunderCats and SilverHawks cast. Bernard Hoffer was doing the music. And get this, the animation was being handled by Pacific Animation Corporation, which was formed partly by staff from Topcraft, the studio that would eventually become Studio Ghibli. Yeah, that Studio Ghibli. So, on paper, TigerSharks had everything it needed to succeed. The pedigree was there. The talent was there. The concept was solid. The animation quality was going to be top tier. But then the business side stepped in and absolutely destroyed it. The fatal mistake. Okay, so here's where everything goes wrong. And it all comes down to one catastrophic decision. The episode count. Now, if you don't know how 1980s syndication worked, let me break it down for you, because this is crucial to understanding why TigerSharks failed. Back in the 80s, the way you made money off a cartoon wasn't really through the initial broadcast. It was through reruns. Stations wanted to be able to air your show 5 days a week without repeating episodes too quickly. This was called stripped syndication. The magic number for this was 65 episodes. That gave you 13 weeks of daily, non-repeating content. If you could hit 65 episodes, you were golden. You could sell rerun packages, make money for years, and keep your toy line relevant. The absolute gold standard was 100 episodes, but 65 was the minimum viable threshold. ThunderCats, 130 episodes, twice the gold standard. SilverHawks, hit that 65 episode minimum perfectly. TigerSharks, 26 episodes, 26. Let that sink in for a second. They took this incredible creative team, this high quality Japanese animation studio, all these talented voice actors, and they gave them enough episodes for barely 5 weeks of daily programming. It was a death sentence from day one. But wait, it gets worse. Not only did they limit it to 26 episodes, but they didn't even give TigerSharks its own time slot. Instead, they packaged it as one of 4 rotating segments in this 90-minute anthology show called The Comic Strip. The other segments were Street Frogs, The Mini Monsters, and Karate Cat. And here's the kicker. Only 2 segments would air on any given day, and each segment was only about 10 minutes long. So let me get this straight. You've got this high-quality show with incredible animation, great voice acting, and a solid concept. But instead of giving it a dedicated 22-minute time slot, like ThunderCats and SilverHawks had, you're chopping it up into 10-minute chunks and hiding it inside an anthology show where viewers might not even see it, depending on which day they tune in. It's like if Marvel spent $200 million making an Avengers movie, but then only released it as a series of 10-minute clips on random days, mixed in with 3 other unrelated movies, and you never knew which clips you were going to get on any given day. Who would watch that? And here's what really kills me about this. The comic strip was the last television series that Rankin and Bass ever produced. This was their swan song, and they completely fumbled it. The numbers tell the whole story. Let me show you what I mean. ThunderCats, 130 episodes, 22 minutes each, with a dedicated time slot. Result? Wildly successful, massive toy sales, cultural phenomenon. SilverHawks, 65 episodes, 22 minutes each, with a dedicated time slot. Result? Moderate success, solid toy sales, profitable. TigerSharks, 26 episodes, 10 minutes each, buried in an anthology show. Result? Complete failure, toy line canceled before major products even hit shelves. The distributor, Lorimar Telepictures, clearly didn't have confidence in the property. And you know what? Their lack of confidence became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The toy line disaster. Now let's talk about the toys, because this is where things get really painful. LJN, the same company that made those awesome ThunderCats figures we all had, they got the TigerSharks contract. And they came up with this cool gimmick for the figures, transformable heads that activated when you pressed a trigger on the arm. The idea was that you could see the transformation from human to shark hybrid, which tied directly into the show's main concept. Sounds great, right? Well, here's the problem. The execution was terrible. The transformation mechanism was fragile and broke easily. If you find loose TigerSharks figures today, they're almost always missing the back panel because it would just snap off during normal play. But honestly, the build quality wasn't even the main problem. The main problem was that the show had no visibility. Remember, it's only airing in 10-minute chunks, buried in an anthology show, with a pathetically small episode count. How are kids supposed to get excited about toys for a show they can barely find on TV? And here's where it gets really sad. LJN only managed to release 8 action figures before they pulled the plug on the entire line. 8 figures, that's it. But wait, there's more. They had plans for all the big ticket items that actually make money in a toy line. They were going to release the Dragonstein monster, the fish tank playset, the Sark vehicle, and the Saw Bill cycle. These are the items that anchor a toy line, the ones that kids beg their parents for at Christmas. But every single one of them was canceled before production. Think about what that means. LJN looked at their early sales data, and it was so bad that they decided to eat the cost of all the design work, all the molds, all the tooling for these major products, rather than risk manufacturing them. That's how fast they bailed on this property. Meanwhile, ThunderCats and SilverHawks toys were still selling like crazy because those shows had proper episode counts and dedicated time slots. Kids could watch them every day, get invested in the characters, and then beg their parents for the toys. TigerSharks never had that chance. The toy line lasted only a brief time on shelves before fading into complete obscurity. And when your toy line fails in the 1980s, your entire franchise is dead. That's just how it worked back then. The weird redemption. But here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. And this is the part that I find absolutely fascinating. TigerSharks failed spectacularly in 1987. The show was canceled, the toys were pulled from shelves, and it looked like it would be completely forgotten. Just another footnote in 80s animation history. Except, that's not what happened. See, the very things that made TigerSharks a commercial failure, the limited run, the scarcity of toys, the weird premise, those are exactly the things that made it valuable to collectors decades later. It's like the opposite of what you'd expect. Today, those original LJN TigerSharks figures that nobody wanted in 1987, they're treasured collectibles that command high prices on the secondary market. The rarity that killed the line back then is exactly what makes it valuable now. It's this beautiful irony. And it gets better. In 2011, Warner Brothers Animation made the 2011 ThunderCats remake. And in one episode called Legacy, they included a cameo appearance by Mako from TigerSharks. They also showed Monstar from SilverHawks. This officially confirmed that all three shows exist in the same shared universe. The lore even established that major villains from both SilverHawks and TigerSharks were among Mum-Ra's ancient generals. So this failed show that barely anyone watched, it's now officially part of the ThunderCats canon. It went from forgotten failure to essential piece of a larger mythology. And here's the really crazy part. In 2025, this year, Super 7 announced they're releasing new TigerSharks action figures. Super 7 is this company that specializes in high-end collector figures, and they've already had huge success with premium ThunderCats and SilverHawks lines. Now they're finally giving TigerSharks the treatment it deserved back in 1987. They're planning to release not just the figures, but also the vehicles and playsets that LJN canceled almost 40 years ago. The fish tank playset, the Sark vehicle, all the stuff that never made it to stores in the 80s is finally getting made for the collector market. So in a weird way, TigerSharks is getting a second chance. It failed because of bad business decisions in the 80s, but now it's succeeding because of good business decisions in the 2020s. The difference? Super 7 understands their audience. They're not trying to compete with He-Man and Transformers for mass market shelf space. They're targeting adult collectors who have nostalgia for the property and disposable income to spend on premium figures. So what can we learn from the TigerSharks disaster? First, and this is huge, content quality doesn't matter if your distribution strategy is garbage. TigerSharks had everything going for it creatively. The animation was gorgeous, the voice acting was professional, the concept was solid. But none of that mattered because the business side completely failed to give it a proper platform. Second, in the 1980s toy-driven animation market, you needed critical mass. 26 episodes wasn't enough. 10-minute segments weren't enough. An anthology format wasn't enough. You needed that 65-episode minimum with a dedicated time slot to build audience loyalty and drive toy sales. Without that foundation, even the best creative team in the world couldn't save you. Third, and this is the most interesting one to me, failure isn't always permanent. TigerSharks was a complete commercial disaster in 1987, but that failure created scarcity, and scarcity created value. The show that nobody wanted to watch became the collectible that everyone wants to own. Sometimes you just need to wait for your audience to find you. And finally, the most important lesson, know your audience and your market. LJN tried to sell TigerSharks to kids in 1987 using the same mass market strategy as ThunderCats, but without giving it the support it needed. Super 7 is selling TigerSharks to adult collectors in 2025 using a premium limited run strategy. Same property, completely different approach, and the second one is actually working. Look, TigerSharks should have been a hit. It had the pedigree, the talent, and the concept, but it got absolutely destroyed by short-sighted business decisions that prioritized cost-cutting over building a sustainable franchise. The 26-episode order killed any chance of profitable syndication. The anthology format killed visibility. The fragile toy design killed word of mouth. And the lack of distributor confidence became a self-fulfilling prophecy that tanked the entire property. But here's the thing that gives me hope. Good ideas don't really die. They just wait for the right moment and the right audience. TigerSharks failed in the 80s, but it's finding new life in the 2020s. The underwater heroes that nobody wanted to watch are finally getting their moment, even if it's 40 years late. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. It's a reminder that sometimes the timing just isn't right, but that doesn't mean the idea was bad. Sometimes you're just ahead of your time. Or in TigerSharks' case, maybe you're just waiting for your audience to grow up and get nostalgic enough to give you a second chance. So that's the complete rise and fall of TigerSharks, the show that had everything except a decent business strategy. But here's the thing. TigerSharks wasn't the only 80s franchise that got completely screwed by bad business decisions. There are dozens of shows from that era that should have been huge but got killed by the same kind of short-sighted thinking. So if you want to see me break down more of these forgotten 80s franchises and explain exactly what went wrong, click on this video right here, where I dive into another spectacular failure from the golden age of toy-driven animation. Trust me, the story is just as wild as this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.